Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. Today, my guest is Sean Hall. He's a 23-year-old American content creator, and he inspires people to escape their hometown and live a life of adventure in Latin America. Sean, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well, Vance. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited for this. How's it going?
I'm doing well, thank you. I think, Sean, that you are our youngest podcast guest that we've had so far. Still an old dude, old man at 23 years old. But I thought, what's a cool angle to this podcast is if we have listeners out there that are in high school, they're in college. I think this episode will be more relatable for them, and will hopefully open their minds up to new possibilities.
Yeah, definitely. I think just that age group it's a very advantageous age to take advantage of, especially for me traveling at this age, to be able to just go see the world now rather than just waiting all your life until they're the right time. And there's never going to be that right time. So I'm excited for these younger kids to be able to listen to what I have to say on this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my biggest regret is not getting started sooner.
Yeah, that's what got me traveling so young is like the older people that I would speak to, like my parents, some like older relatives and everything. Their biggest regret they would always tell me is that same thing is they wish they would have just gone out and seen the world and traveled at a younger age when they're young and able and like you're able to experience as like a single adult, go check out like the dating all around the world and all that stuff and just meeting people. It's their biggest regret, which pushed me to just want to go out and see it and do it myself now and just make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so we first got connected on Twitter. I saw that you were kind of engaging with people, noticed that you were building up a TikTok, and saw that you were just putting yourself out there, showing what you were up to along the way, and you seemed like a cool, genuine guy. So I thought we'd have you on. And Sean would love if you could just tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you got into traveling.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a 23-year-old from San Francisco, California. So I was born and raised here in the Bay Area. And my whole life, honestly, I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player. So I worked from when I was 5 years old until through high school to try to make that dream happen. And then just years and years of playing, I got completely burnt out. And I just knew this wasn't the path that I was really like happy continuing. And so I went to college. I went to San Jose State University. And while I was there, I met a good group of friends my freshman year that were all pursuing something creative. So I had friends that were pursuing music, pursuing acting, as well as like some athletes as well. And them going through that process of like chasing that dream, I knew I didn't want to just take that traditional route and take the normal 9 to 5, do that for like 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and then retire and just live that kind of lifestyle. I knew just surrounding myself around them that just wasn't something that appealed to me at all. So going around and being with that like strong friend group really pushed me to have me thinking like what do I want to do that would make me like feel fulfilled in this life. And something I always knew ever since I was young is like I always had a fascination with traveling and just going around to different cities, whether it was in the US or all around the world, to really experience life outside of what I'm used to here. And so that got me thinking, and I joined a nonprofit organization in college, and it's called ISIC. So this organization helps bring international students into the U.S. to work, as well as send people abroad for these volunteerships and working abroad.
Mhm.
So going through that really opened my eyes. Like, okay, I can make traveling a possibility, and I can find a way to make money while I'm abroad doing these types of experiences, which I never thought was possible before. Um, and then COVID hit 2020, and I was really just at a crossroads of what can I do? Because I was a junior at the time in university, and just thinking like, okay, traveling can't do that now because we're in a pandemic. There was no traveling going on that I knew I could do. So I started thinking, okay, I knew I wanted to pursue baseball, so maybe I could go back and try to get a job in the MLB and with the team. So I had a job lined up with the New York Mets. But then once COVID happened, and it was my senior year, I just really came back to that realization like, no, I don't want to do that 9 to 5 job. And it all just came to me. I think it was on Twitter or it was on TikTok. And, or no, you know what it was? It was the Tim Ferriss podcast that I was listening to. And he had Rolf Potts on. And
Mhm.
that was my first realization of when they were talking about traveling and solo traveling and this idea of slow traveling. So I picked up that book. It's called Vagabonding by Rolf Potts, and I
Mhm.
read it, and that is what completely shifted my mind and real made me realize, okay, solo traveling and slow traveling is something that I think I'm very passionate about and I want to make happen. And after reading that book, I got back in touch with that nonprofit I was with during my freshman year, and they just opened up teaching English abroad programs. And so I hit them back up. I joined one of their programs, and one of them was to go to Colombia to teach English. And that's what I was able to do this whole past year.
Nice. And I suppose we can go sequentially, talk about Colombia and then talk about Brazil. But before we start diving too deep into it, just give us a high level overview of where you've sort of spent time in the past year or two, or I guess since you started your travel journey.
Yeah, for sure. So in 2019, well, I guess my first travel journey was when I graduated high school and I went to Mexico. But I always tell people I don't count that as traveling because I went to Cabo San Lucas, which to me just felt like I was taking a trip in the US. Like everyone was American over there. Like they had like the Mexican culture, but to me it just felt like I was in a United States resort. So I don't really count that. So I would say my first actual travel experience was when I went to Brazil in 2019, and so I did a business internship in Brasilia, which is the capital there.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I was there for 2 months. So while I was working there, so they spoke English at that startup, but it was like a lot of broken English. They weren't like completely fluent, and so at the time they brought me in to do like marketing and some sales for them. And since I was the most fluent in English, they were negotiating some type of like investment deal with a U.S. company for I think it was like $1 million or $2 million, and they had me take over the meeting because I was the only one who actually spoke English and could communicate with them. So just jumping right in at like 19 years old and taking that meeting was like holy shit kind of moment for me, but also super cool that I don't think a US company would ever trust someone to do that, especially at my age and my experience. But going to Latin America and they just needed my help was just a super cool experience for me. So I did Brazil for 2 months. I saw Rio, I saw Sao Paulo, but only for like a weekend. So I definitely have to make it back to Brazil. And then after that, I went back to university in California, and then I traveled to Colombia this past year. So I was all over the coast. I was living in Bogota. That's where I was teaching English. Traveled to Medellin, San Andres, Santa Marta, Cartagena, and all over like the Eje Cafetero area. So that's where I spent the most time. That was like my longest travel experience to this date. And then next year, hopefully, we're bringing a lot more.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You definitely got a lot of cool experiences under your belt. I thought maybe we could jump right into talking about Colombia and that experience for you. And I think one of the cool things is that you can bring to the podcast is that you sort of have a fresh set of eyes on things where things are still new. You can still very vividly describe the differences between what it was like back in the States, at San Jose State University and everything versus in Latin America. Because on the podcast, we've had like hardened travelers and more experienced people. I don't know. But for you, everything must be a little bit more fresh, but you've also done cool stuff. And so, um, maybe we could talk just first about like the warmth of people and I guess sort of about like the social aspect. Uh, in the States, like college is the most social aspect of most people's lives, oftentimes.
Hmm.
And I was almost curious how, if you could sort of break down your experience going from that sort of college environment to a Latin America environment, and what opened your eyes about it, what epiphanies you had, and things you noticed.
Yeah, for sure. So there was like a drastic difference for me from college and then going and living in Latin America. The first thing that comes to my mind is that in college, like everyone was cool with you or with me. Like I had a good amount of friends and everything like that, but there was also this idea of like status in university. I always felt too that like you always had to be like bringing this person something, um, just like this idea that you had like showing your worth in some way, and that's how you're gonna get people to like talk to you and everything like that. Um, and so like I knew, so I tried to join a fraternity when I was in my first year, and I lasted maybe like a week in it because I was like, this is excuse my language, but this is ass. Like I did not enjoy it whatsoever. It just felt like I was basically just doing all the dirty work for them and all that, and I was just not with it. But then going to Latin America, everyone just seemed like just so much more friendly, so much more open, and just wanting to talk to you. And I don't know if that's, I think that's just the case of like how they're raised and everything, but also that maybe I was just, because I was coming from another country too, they saw it as like almost that it was something different, I guess. But just like the overall like friendliness and just open armed feeling of going into that country, and everyone always wants to help. If I ever had a question like on the street or if I was lost, like someone was always there to try to figure something out and help me out. Even when I went there and I knew zero Spanish. So like just having trying to do like Google Translate conversations with them and try to figure out where I'm going, what I want to buy at a store, or like how much something costs and all this. Everyone was always there to help, which I thought was a huge difference from the US and here is that in the US everyone feels like they're always like on their grind. Everyone's like trying to always just push forward and they don't really have time for like other things. But in Latin America, everyone will stop all that they're doing just to help you and just try to like make your day a little better and a little easier for you. So that was like the biggest difference that I saw from living in the US and living in Latin America, which makes me just want to go back even more.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely reflects my experience. So would you say that it was a bit of like social climbing or status oriented in the States, and you're not experiencing that in Latin America?
Yeah, you don't experience that at all in Latin America. I feel like it's like everyone is just, it's like a more of a togetherness is how I would explain it. I think is that like even at parties, let's say you're going out to a club in the United States compared to Latin America. In the United States, you need to get a table. You want to get like bottles, service, and all this stuff. Like you do that in Latin America, no one really cares. People want to just go out and dance and have a good time and just like listen to music and sing and all that kind of stuff. Like it's a complete difference from here in the U.S. That like once I saw that in Latin America, I was like, it's just so much more fun, and like the nights are just way more like you create way better memories like this. Not everyone, no one's like all stuck up like I can't dance and like I gotta look all cool and everything. No, like you don't get that vibe at all in Latin America.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. By the way, I've partied in San Jose before. I've been to some of those clubs. They probably have different names, but
Oh yeah.
just a side story. Yeah, I might be doxing myself too much, but I lived in San Jose for a period of time, and
Oh, that's
there's
sweet.
something called the International House on the San Jose State
Yeah.
campus, and yeah, I shouldn't dox myself too much, but I stayed there for a bit.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I have like a Silicon Valley tech background,
Gotcha.
so I love obviously that culture. But yeah, we'll keep the focus on you. Just wanted to build some rapport.
Yeah, no, for
But
sure.
what else? Like go into more detail for the people about like how partying or social stuff is different.
Yeah. So, um, when I was in Colombia, so my first weekend, I went out to a club with some friends that were a part of the nonprofit that I was in college that they also have in Colombia. So I went out with some of them, and it's like as soon as I walked in to the club, like the overall atmosphere of it was just crazy. Like salsa music the whole time once I walked in. Like there, so it was like a crossover music type club, but they're like on like their salsa part of it. So it was all salsa music and everyone's dancing together. And I was just looking around like this is not what I'm used to at all. Like at San Jose, people danced like a lot at like the university parties and stuff like that. But it was like just more like head bobbing and like doing like your own moves and all this stuff, and then like they'll play like some like twerk music and all that, and then you'll start dancing like that. But here it was like people are dancing salsa, and then they're dancing bachata, and then it's merengue, and then they put reggaeton on, and then everyone's going crazy to that. It was like so many different types of music that they were playing, and like everyone knew how to dance to everything, and everyone was a good dancer, which is like I'm not used to that at all because I just feel like in the US people aren't as good dancers as definitely as not as much as in Latin America. And so just walking into it, I was like I felt like a complete like new door just opened up. Like I saw the light.
And
Um
it's not just about like the level of dance skill, but I think you might agree that there's like a sense of togetherness too. Like, you know, you'll make some friends and it'll be of like eight of you guys in a circle, kind of like dancing as one, things like that.
yeah, exactly. Like there were just complete strangers in there that would pull us in like, oh no, come dance with us, and they'll all start dancing. They'll pull me to their friends and we'll all start dancing, and then just everyone's passing back and forth to other people and all that. Like it's definitely a more togetherness, and everyone just like wants to have a good time. Like no one cares about how they look when they're out there. Like I'm not a good dancer whatsoever, but like I feel more free out there just doing what I want to do in the club and stuff, just because no one's judging there, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, any different thoughts about just like how the structure of a night out might be different?
Yeah. Um so something that I saw was different was, at least when I was partying in college, it's like, okay, you're gonna pregame a lot before you go out, drink a lot before you go, and then you're gonna go out to the party and then go have fun or whatever. But there was a lot of nights out where we didn't even drink at all before, and you just go out and they are still able to have a good time even without drinking any alcohol. Which is like at university, at least that wasn't really the case. Like you basically were drinking every time you would want to go out. But here it's like I don't know if it's like the music that they play, that like salsa and bachata is just more like loving feeling or something, that or just like the energy that it brings, that you don't need to drink for it. But I've had plenty of nights out where I had so much fun and I didn't have to drink any alcohol at all. And you just are loose already just doing all the dances there and all that stuff. So I think that was a big difference for me, was just realizing that you don't need alcohol to go have a good time. Um and so I think that was the biggest thing that was a difference for me. I think going out like a little later too was another thing. I think in the US we would like pregame around like 8 o'clock or something, then go out. In Colombia, some nights we didn't even go out until 11 or 12, and then some of the clubs opened until 5. And so I remember when I was in Cartagena actually for New Year's, we had New Year's, and it was like at 12 like the actual party ended. We were just on the street dancing. And then this we met this magician, which is gonna sound really weird, but we met this magician dancing on the street, and he had like this wand that he was twirling around, and so we all got really like curious about how he did it, because it looked like it was just floating. And so we went up to go talk to him and everything, started up a conversation, and then he ended up being like a promoter for other clubs around that area. So he brought us with him to like a night out with him. And we didn't leave that club until maybe like 9 a.m. And like, so people just party all night long in Latin America. Like, it's a lot longer nights than I'm used to in the US.
Right. I think one distinction I'd like to make is that, let's say in Europe, in Berlin or something, you can stay out till 9 a.m. But in my experience, like, it's not really about the open later thing. In Latin America, it's more about the sense of togetherness and the ability to have fun without alcohol, and more of the like social aspects.
Yeah, 100%.
So you mentioned New Year's. I know we were talking a bit offline about your first Christmas in Colombia. Tell us a little bit about that, and I guess you might need to preamble to walk us in to how you spent Christmas uh, in Colombia. So yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so when I was living in Colombia, I was teaching English over there, and I was living with other international teachers. So we had one from Spain, a guy from Turkey, and a guy from Venezuela. And so we were all teaching at that school. And for Christmas, though, the girl from Spain, her family came and they went to go travel, and then the guy from Turkey went with her family, and then the one from Venezuela went with his Colombian girlfriend's family. So I was kind of like, okay, what am I gonna do for Christmas? And so before they all went out to travel, December 7th is it's called Dia de Velitas, which is like the Day of the Candles, where everyone gets together with their families and goes outside and lights candles and basically like wishes a good luck for the next year and like makes their tells their prayers and um, just trying to wish for good luck through the candle celebration. And so we went out to Simon Bolivar Park with my roommates, and we all like lit candles and just being around. It was like thousands of people outside there, all with candles, all with their families. Like they were playing live music there, and just like the whole tradition of I really enjoyed because that's not something we did here in the U.S. Um, so there was just more festivities leading up to Christmas. So we had that one, and then also novenas was another one. I think I'm not sure exactly the day. I want to say like December 20th or something, or the 15th, something like that. But one of my students' families actually reached out to me and like said that there's like a big tradition in Colombia where you celebrate with family. So we would love to invite you to our house. So I thought that was a really cool experience to be able to live with a Colombian family to actually like understand this new tradition as well, with novenas. And so they said a bunch of prayers. There was like pre-scripted I don't know if they were Bible verses or what, but they were like saying different verses, and they would have the kids rehearse them and like say it to everyone there, and then we would all have natilla, which is like a famous dessert that they all cook during Christmas time. We had buñuelos, which is like this doughy ball that we would eat, and then we had like lechona and just like this whole celebration was just so awesome to me because it was very like a big family gathering with complete strangers, but also like I felt so a part of it because they made me feel so welcome there, and like so just celebrating these types of traditions with them. And then I also like heard about running your suitcase around the neighborhood so that you can hope for more travels in the new year. You wear I think it was red underwear if you want like love in the new year. Like so there's just different types of like traditions that you can do um, depending on what you want the new year to bring, which I thought was hilarious. So they have a bunch of different things like that. And then actually, so then Christmas came along and my family actually did come to visit me there. And so we traveled to Medellin for Christmas, and they do Christmas right there, like the lights shows and like the different like things that they put together there, like the different they did like floats that are all lit up. They had this whole block street of just like lights and different people performing, like different magicians dances, like this guy doing like this puppet thing, and it was all Christmas themed. And then their whole lake, I think it was in, I'm not too sure which part of Medellin it was in. I can't remember exactly, but they lit the whole like the whole canal to like light up different colors for Christmas as well. So
Yeah.
like Medellin, I always heard was a beautiful place to spend Christmas. So I'm glad I was able to experience that. And then they had like these, they made buñuelos there, but they're like the largest ones in all of Colombia, and they were like as like 2 times bigger than my head, and they were just frying it in the oil right in front of you, which was really cool. Um,
It's like a dough ball for anyone listening.
yeah,
Like fried dough.
uh-huh. And so, and then they like inject it sometimes with like caramel or like whatever you want, like chocolate and stuff like that sometimes. Um, So yeah, Medellin was just awesome to see during Christmas, and we went out to a party that day. We were just walking around. It was our last day there, so we were only there for I want to say like 2 days. So Christmas Eve and Christmas, and then on Christmas we went out to a club, and this is another thing that like made us feel like that togetherness again, is that we went to this hookah bar, but it was also a club that was upstairs, and so it was like a two-level type thing. And so my older brother Sonny, he went upstairs to go like just check out the view and check out what it's like upstairs. And then there was these three Colombians that were just like seeing him walk up, and they're like, "Come join us. Like, who are you with? Are you alone? Like, bring your family, bring your friends, whatever. Like, come dance with us." And so he came running downstairs, like, "Oh, we got to go upstairs. Like, there's people up there that are waiting for us. They want to like drink with us and dance and everything." And so at the time, there was just them three up there. And then I feel like we just brought the party up there. Like everyone from downstairs, all the time, it's like packed upstairs, and everyone's dancing. They were playing like reggaeton music. They're playing salsa, and like these people are just like complete strangers, but they ended up like giving us like the best time. And so we were upstairs, and they brought like one of the hookahs upstairs. And cut me off if I'm not allowed to talk about this though, but we brought the hookah upstairs, and we don't know exactly how it happened, but somehow it's on the floor and it was broken. And so the waiter came up to us at the end of the night and was like, "Okay, you guys broke our hookah, so you have to pay for it." And this one of the Colombian girls, she's from Barranquilla, and she went up to the waiter, and she started just cussing her out like, "This is ridiculous. You're just saying this because they're gringos. You're just trying to make money off of them. Like they didn't break it," and just like standing up for us. And we all like at the time, like we didn't know what they were saying because none of us spoke Spanish at that time. And we're like, what, we don't know what's going on. Then the other two went over there and started arguing with them too, and they started like getting like into it, like they were just yelling back and forth at each other, arguing. And we're like, these people are just complete strangers, but they're standing up for us for something like so little like this, but they really just want to make the point that like they got our back even though we just met them that night. So
Yeah.
that just shows you like Colombian people, and like that, just like that familyness that they bring, even if they're like you just met on that night. Um, and so we couldn't get out of it though. We ended up paying it anyway, but it was like 100,000, which is like what, $20 or something like that. So
Hey,
we weren't trying to make a big
you
deal.
got
We're
away
like,
all right.
yeah, it was like we're in a completely, like my family was like, we're in a completely new country. We don't know what's gonna happen if like we don't pay it. So like let's just stop this argument and stuff. Like it's
Yeah,
only
yeah, yeah.
20 bucks too, but to them it was like, no, like you guys aren't paying this. This is like they're just trying to get money out of you on this stuff. Um,
Fair
so
enough.
just like that feeling of like just togetherness, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool. So I understand that you got a girlfriend somewhere along the way.
I did, yeah. So in January this year.
And so I normally don't even ask people about this, but
Uh huh.
I think it's just fun because I guess because you're a younger guy and maybe it's like I don't know, it feels like more harmless to me. But yeah, tell us a little bit about your first Latino girlfriend, or
Yeah,
at least from the old country.
yeah, for sure. it's a funny story of how we met. So I I made TikTok videos when I was there. Um, and just like talking about like the beauty of Colombia, just trying to get people to open their mind about it. That it's not like Narcos. It's like a completely changed thing now that people should want to come here and everything. So I was just showing like the other side of Colombia that people don't really see unless they like looked up YouTube videos and stuff like that and really dug deep. So she started following me on there because she wanted to learn English. So
On
she was,
TikTok.
yeah, on TikTok.
Okay.
So she was practicing her English with my videos and just hearing me speak English and like trying to understand like what I was saying and everything. And then we were in Medellin, I guess, around the same time, like during Christmas. And so she followed me on Instagram to hear updates of like what I did so they could do like the same thing, and just get ideas on what to do during their trip. So she followed me on there. And then I posted something about Santa Marta, I think, when I was there. So I was in Santa Marta right after Medellin, so right before New Year's, and just talking about like doing more of what makes you happy, go travel and all this stuff. And then my last slide was someone who commented on my TikTok that says like it said like go home gringo or something, and you have kids in the US and you're like abandoning them or something like that. It was like completely random because I don't have kids at all, so I don't know where they're coming with that. But so she commented on that picture and was like, "Oh, you're like a really bad dad or whatever." And like I didn't really think too much of it. I just commented back. But then around January of that, like it was like a couple weeks later. Like I just followed her because I saw that she was also in Medellin, and like so I thought she was from there. So I was gonna ask like more recommendations on what to do. And I so in my head, I my first message to her was "Que pasa," which what I thought was like, "Oh, what's happening? What's up?" But so she told me later, like, "Okay, I understood what you're trying to say, but that's not like we don't say that at all here. Like, it's more like what is going on? Like what's
That's
happening?
almost
I
like
guess.
what's wrong.
Yeah, what's wrong?" So that's just me being like stupid, I guess. But that was like the first line, and then we just started talking a lot on Instagram and everything. And turns out she's actually from Bojaca, so a city called Sogamoso. And I've never been to that area, but I've always wanted to. And so I thought, like, start up conversation, keep talking about that, and then we just started messaging back and forth. And we were supposed to meet up at one of the clubs in Bogota in the 85 in the 85.
Mhm.
And but in those clubs you have to make reservations and get there kind of early, and we missed our reservation time. Like she got there with her friends, but me and my friends, we got there too late. And so like my first experience with her in person was her coming up to the security guard and like begging him to get us in. Like another example of like Colombians just trying to help as much as they can,
Mhm.
even for strangers. So I was like, damn, this girl's hella cool. Like she's fighting for me, even though like we don't even know each other yet. And she's trying to get me in so bad. So we weren't able to get in, but then I met her up with the next day, and we just talked for hours and hours. Like it was just like nonstop. And I was like, I've like just cool ass conversation, just very deep talks and stuff like that, which I really enjoyed. And so we just hit it off ever since then. And then yeah, then we were just together for the rest of my experience there in Colombia.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, I think people love hearing about sort of like the differences or things that you noticed that made a relationship with a Latina different than, say, an American. Um, you don't have to say
Hmm.
anything you don't want to or anything crude, but just like the things you've noticed.
Yeah. So I always had the stereotype that Latinas are very toxic, and that's what I always thought Latinas were. And for a good amount of them, I guess it's true because I do hear a lot of stories about it. But I think that's what made me more interested in her is like from the jump, she was like, "Look, like I know you're an American living here, and I know you want to like go out and like have a good time, meet people and everything, and like just know that I'm not gonna hold you back at all. Like I want you to go have your fun too, but and just making it like a point that like we're in a relationship though. Like I would never cheat on anyone. Like I would never ever do that. But she made the point from the start and was just like you can go and meet other people. You can like go have fun. Like I know you're still trying to experience Colombia and go to places and stuff like that. So I'm not gonna stop you from doing that. And I'm not like a jealous kind of person because like the amount of trust she had in me from the beginning was very evident, and I think that's like kind of what made me want to start that and continue that relationship with her, especially since I was only going to be there for like the next 5 months because I was leaving in that July. So I had to tell her from the start like we're not going to be able to like stick together after that because I've never thought long distance made sense, especially in different countries. And so but we just made it work. And so I think that was the first thing. It was like I was just surprised she wasn't toxic. And like there was a lot of like moments where I feel like she could have been and she just wasn't. So that's what made her stand out to me. Um the sense of family was another thing is like I know you guys talk about that on Twitter a lot too, is like the family aspect in Latin America is so much different from here, is like people live with their families for pretty much all up until they get married, and
Mhm.
then they leave. But they still like see family every weekend almost. Or so every Sunday we would always sit down with her family and have like it was always the same thing. I always make fun of her for it, but it's always mojada frita, which is like a fried fish, and then we would always have wine and then some type of dessert after. And it was the same every Sunday, but it was always really good. We would always order from the same place, but they like made it a thing. Like every Sunday, we're gonna always sit down and do this and like have that family time, which for my family here is something that we do too. Like we have a very strong like family connection. I think it's maybe because it's an Asian household, so we kind of have like those that similarity in that
Are
aspect.
you, like,
But
half Asian or what?
yeah, I'm half Asian, so I'm Asian,
Okay,
Mexican, and Irish.
gotcha. Continue.
Yeah. So just like that Asian household, I think was very similar. So I've always felt very comfortable like having like that strong family tie. But I know in a lot of the US it's like no, you kick your kids out at 18 or whenever they graduate college and have them like fight for themselves and figure it out. But in Latin America, it's like completely different. It's like no, you're gonna stick with your family until you're ready to like make that jump out, and like they're gonna wait until that perfect moment for them to say goodbye, kind of thing. But even with that goodbye, it's like I'm gonna still gonna see you next week. So
Mhm.
just like that family connection that she also had with her family was huge. And it was something that I thought really stood out in Latin America. A lot of my friends from like the school, like the teachers that were like native to Colombia, it was the same thing. They could be like 27, 30, 35 years old and they're still living at home with their family. Um, so that was just like a huge thing for me to see, is that like family is very important to me, and it's also a lot more important in these countries than it is with some of my other like I don't want to say like whiter friends, but my white friends, I guess, in the US. It's like a completely different perspective. um so yeah, I
Yeah,
think those are the two biggest things I noticed.
it must have been interesting those, first interactions with the family, meeting the family. Were you nervous?
Yeah, 100%, because none of them spoke English. I met her dad. Actually, it's funny. So the first time I met them was like our second date, and I was going to it's called Lago de Tota, I think, the Tota Lake. It's like one of the biggest lakes in Colombia in Boyacá. So we were gonna go there, but I had to stop by her house first to like pick her up so we could take the bus there. And I walk into her house and I see her brother just sitting at the dinner table. And like, I know how brothers are with like with their sister's boyfriends. 'Cause I have a sister myself, and if I ever saw her bring a boyfriend in, I don't know how I would react. But he was sitting there at the dinner table, and I just see him like death staring me. And I try to like introduce myself, but he doesn't speak English, so he didn't want anything to do with that conversation at all. So I went to go sit down, and then her
Really?
dad.
So a little bit of a cultural there.
Yeah, a big cold shoulder, not even a little bit. Like he didn't want to speak to me at all. After that, he just stared at me and then went upstairs.
Okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah. So, but her dad came down, and that was a like drastic difference. Like he doesn't speak any English either, but he was like, "Oh my God, Chon!" Like they don't know how to. They no one was ever able to say my name there. They always called me Chon because I guess they just couldn't pronounce the like noise, so they would all call me Chon. But he was like, "Oh my God, Chon! Like nice to meet you." I forget how you say it. It's like "May God bless you." It's Dios te bendiga, or
Yeah, sure.
something like that.
Mhm.
So he was like brought me in open arms and like, oh, that's so nice to meet you. Like shook my hand and everything. I was like Melissa's very happy to have you. We're very happy to have you a part of us too, and all this stuff. I was like, whoa, like I didn't really understand much of it. They had to translate to me, but but just like the two complete different like interactions I was able to have with her family. And then later on, I was able to meet like her sisters and everything, which one of them speaks English. Um, but that's like being a part of that family, I think, is what pushed me to like learn Spanish better and just actually try to practice so that I can actually communicate with them. So my whole year there like was very difficult, and like I would dread those conversations just because it was like I wish I could bring more to the table and I wish I could actually have genuine conversations with them. I just don't know how to say it. And so that whole year was just difficult. But then it was weird because when I left Colombia, um, like we broke up once I left, but we kind of kept a little conversation, like a little connection going. And then I went back the in November for the Bad Bunny concert. And I don't know what happened. When I left Colombia, I really didn't know too much Spanish. And even coming back, I didn't practice that much. But coming back for that 1 week, I was having full blown conversations with the taxi drivers, my Uber drivers. I went back to go visit her and her family. I was having full on conversations with them, understanding everything. And so I don't know what clicked in my brain, like something happened, but I guess that whole year just like hearing Spanish every and just separating myself a little from it and then coming back into that environment again just unlocked everything. And so it was so cool going back there and actually like being able to talk to them. They're like, "Oh my God, your Spanish has got so much better." I could actually like crack jokes with them and everything, and like actually show my personality than just like the broken Spanish and simple basic phrases that I knew.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one thing I would note about your story with the reception you received from the mother and father is it was probably noticeably warmer than it might have been meeting someone in an American context, but also it happened a lot sooner, right? Like you tell me, but you could date a girl for 6 months in the States and not meet her parents.
Yeah, 100%. And I met her parents the first or the second date.
Why do you think that is? And is that your like observation? Like when do people meet each other's parents in the States?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's exactly my observation just because like my other girlfriends in the past, like I met her parents and kind of early on. I would say within actually even before we were dating, like I met her mom like just out of the blue. Like it was on accident, but I still met her and like I don't know if it's
Sure.
just like
You
that.
know what I would say? You know what I would say? Sorry to cut you off.
No,
Is
go ahead.
that perhaps that's the case like in high school years because you're kind of whatever,
Hmm.
but like once you get into your 20s, you like at dating in the in your 20s in the States, you're probably not really going to meet the parents too early on. But in
Hmm.
Latin America, you still are cuz they like live at home.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's more of like a big deal in the States to go and bring them to another household to meet your family than just to go home because they're living in two different houses now. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah. Um yeah, man, what else? What else? Where do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, we could talk a little more dating. Um, one of the I wanted to bring on this up. One of the cooler dates that I went on actually was in like October. I spoke to a brand, and they're like a bucket list brand. So they try to make like they're like the first bucket list social media page. Um, so I reached out to them about sponsoring one of my dates, and it was more like, are you familiar with Yes Theory?
Barely, but yeah.
Okay. So they had a date, or they had like a concept for a video where they had a date that was completely controlled by Instagram polls. And so I've always wanted to recreate that. So they were interested in it. So they sent me $100 for that date, and I think that was my first realization of how far $100 goes in Latin America compared to the U.S. Because if I had $100 day in the U.S., that would be like a dinner and then maybe like some snacks after.
Well, you
Uh,
might even be sweating if it would cover it.
yeah, exactly. Um, but $100 there, I was like, holy shit, this goes so far. Like, we had Instagram polls take over it. So it was another girl that I just met on that liked my TikToks, and then she followed me on Instagram. We talked on there for a little bit. Then I pitched her the idea of this day, and she was down. So we did it, and like the first option was like, okay, sushi or Colombian food, and we went out to like a nice sushi restaurant, and I think I only spent like $5, $10 on it. Um, and then the next one was like bowling or golf, like indoor golf. So we went bowling. The bowling alley
And you're
was,
filming it
yeah,
while
and
you're
I'm
doing
filming it the whole time. So
it? Okay,
like
okay.
I'm asking like Instagram, I have both of us in there, like, hey, how's it going? I'm with blah blah blah. We're on our first date, and here's the option. So I want you guys to completely control it. So after 5 minutes, I'm gonna check it, and whichever has the most votes, then that's what we're gonna do. So I made like a whole TikTok video like on it. So it was like different parts and everything. And then so we did that. So we did bowling, and then we went out to it was like a massage or getting nails done or something like that. And so I wanted a massage so bad. I don't know how that one didn't win, but we ended up like going to like a nail salon. So we did that, and then we went to go get ice cream after. It was like a whole day affair, and like I still had $50 left over. I only spent like half of it after doing all that, which is like I was just thinking, I don't know how that's not even possible in the U.S. Like one of those things would have taken the whole $100 itself, but I was only able to get half of it out doing all that. So that was like a super fun day, and something that I definitely want to try to do again.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Any other good PG rated dating stories?
Yeah, let me think. One of the cool ones, actually, for my birthday, my girlfriend, she got me. We went to this little small town in Bojaca. I think it's called. Um, It's not Paipa. It's one of those little towns there. They're like the pottery capital of Colombia. Um, so we went there, and she scheduled like a whole day. We made and we like did like a pot making class, and it was just like individual. So it was just us two and like the guy training us on how to do it. So it was super hands on, and like we got to see how they make all their pots that are all hung up around their house. And which was cool is like it wasn't some type of um building you go to where it's like made for that. We literally just went to this guy's house, and he ran his business out of his garage. And so he had all the equipment back there in his garage and his backyard, and we were just walking back and forth like making the pots and everything, which was a lot of fun. Like not something I think thought I'd ever do before, but I actually had a lot of fun doing it. So something like that. We went to San Andres for her birthday, and we did parasailing, which was really cool. We snorkeled with, or it was like not snorkeling. We put on these big helmets that were like astronaut helmets, and it takes us underwater to like the what sculpture was it? It was like a Zeus. No, it was I think it was like a Zeus sculpture or something like that, underwater that they have in San Andres. So you go there with like a tour guide and you take pictures and everything.
Mhm.
But it's not like it's like scuba diving without getting like the scuba diving license, kind of. I guess you could explain it
Sure.
like that.
Snorkeling.
Yeah. So it was like this big astronaut helmet that's like super heavy, so it just keeps you underwater. So that was pretty fun, and yeah, that's like the most that I could think of with
It's
dating.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pottery made me think of a question for you, which is just about how much more informal, I guess, business and the line between like outdoor like street vendors and stuff
Hmm.
is in Colombia, and was wondering sort of that must have been a surprise for you as well, coming from California where everything's very strict and regimented in storefronts and so forth, to a more informal economy in Colombia.
Yeah, 100%. Like everyone ran their businesses out of their house. So what I saw a lot was like downstairs they would have like the grill running, and they're making like they're flipping arepas and making empanadas and all those, and selling it downstairs. And then they live right upstairs, so they literally just close it down and walk upstairs to go to bed. And I saw that all around me, like pretty much everywhere around in Colombia, they had that. And there was always people selling like fresh fruit on the streets. I saw the biggest avocados I've ever seen in my life in Colombia. It's like, and they're just walking around with a huge cart, like a wheelbarrow of avocados, walking around selling them. Fresh juices every block. Like that's one thing that I miss so much ever since like I've come back, is that you don't really see that here all that much. Like we might have a couple vendors here and there, but like every single corner of the street you would see one in Colombia. And if I ever wanted fresh fruit, I could go buy it off this person. If I ever wanted like an avocado that I needed for guacamole or something, you could just go right outside your door and find it. Um, Getting a haircut, like it's everything you ever need in Latin America, which I love so much, is literally right down the block from you. You don't have to have a car to drive around and try to find anything. You can walk out your door and it's there. And so that was a huge difference because living in like the suburbs of California, and going out there, it's like you need a car to drive 15 minutes to go to the grocery store, then another 20 to go to the gym, then another 15 to do whatever. Like whatever you want to do, you always have to drive or take public transportation and stuff. But in
Yeah.
Colombia, everything was just right there.
Yeah, and would you say that living in a walkable area was a significant lifestyle improvement?
Yeah, definitely. Because it had me walking everywhere. Like here, I'm always either sitting on a bus or sitting in a car going places. But there, like, you don't need to do any of that. You can walk everywhere. You're getting exercise every single day. Like seeing the sun every single day. Everyone says, like, the sun's bad for you, like, all this propaganda about it. But, like, I'm never more happy than when I see the sun out all the time and I'm able to walk and just face it and see it every single day. Like getting trapped in the cold and not seeing the sun, it's all foggy and everything, and just not being outside walking, it completely derails like your happiness. But being out there, like I think that's why everyone is so happy there all the time and just okay with their life always. It's just like they're always able to just go outside. They're always able to see the sun. It's always like people to talk to. Like everyone knows everyone there, it seemed like. Even if they didn't, they just met that day. Everyone's starting conversation with just random people around. And you're able to walk everywhere for anything you need. So there's like that time constraint if you need like to go to the store really badly. You literally can walk right outside your door across the street. There's probably some type of market that sells what you need. So it's super important.
Hmm. Brings me to a related question, which is just around people like spending more time outside. And maybe you noticed that like in the States, the children's playground or town square is like a ghost town
Yeah.
once the sun goes down, right? And even during the day, really.
Hmm.
But in Colombia, people are just outside, and you might notice that like people are walking around and getting ice creams and in the parks and stuff, basically like till midnight.
Yeah. And like the kids are always with their parents is another thing. Like now I feel in the US, when I was a kid, it was like that. We would always be outside, always playing at like outside our house, meeting all the neighborhood kids. Now it's like a completely dead zone. Like everyone's inside, they have their electronics now with their iPads and all this stuff. But in Latin America, everyone's like, you go to any park and you're always going to find people. Like I don't think I ever walked into a park that was just no one. Even when it's raining, you have kids playing soccer in the basketball courts. Like they really don't care. They're in shorts and a tank top and flip-flops on, bare feet playing soccer in the rain. Like no matter where you go, you're always going to find people to like have a good time with. But it's just like in the US it's so much different. Everyone's stuck inside, and that's why I feel like everyone's like saying how depressed they are living, and they're always American citizens. And like it's because everyone just traps themselves inside and never see the sun. You're working your 9 to 5 job that's just in a cubicle the whole day. You get to work, it's dark, you leave when it's dark, and you never go outside. And like,
Mhm.
and the another thing too is like the food there in Colombia just tastes like, felt so much fresher than the same things I would eat in the US. Like I would go and have a pastry every morning, like this, whether it's like a cheese stick or like a pan de bocadillo, like the guava pastry. Like I would have that almost every day before school, and I felt great. If I when I eat that kind of stuff here in the U.S., I don't know if it's all processed things. They're putting a bunch of chemicals or something in it. I feel like so bloated, so tired after it. But then I do the same thing there, and I feel great. And I don't know if
That
that's
that's
that.
such an interesting observation for someone from California because for a Canadian like myself, we don't even grow any food really. At
Yeah.
least in California, there's like some avocado production
Uh
and
huh.
almonds, and at least you guys like grow some food there
Yeah.
and have Whole Foods and all that. But think about people in the northern US or in other places in the UK where literally everything is imported.
Exactly. So it makes it even worse. And to make that kind of food last, they're putting like spraying it with a bunch of stuff, and by the time you guys get it, it's, who knows what went in it in that process.
I'm so happy you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's like the food, I don't know what it is, like, and I've heard stories of other people telling me the same thing. Like they go to Colombia and they eat like even fast food in Colombia. They go eat fast food there, like McDonald's or Burger King or whatever it is. Even that feels more gourmet than food that you'll eat in like a mid-range restaurant here in the US, even being from California. So it's just like the food just felt fresher. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yep, yep, I agree. So Sean, you're getting into teaching people how to escape their hometown. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the types of people that I really can't stand are very close minded people. And my mission is that I want to help people with that close minded idea on like seeing the world, like get rid of that stigma in them and get them traveling. Because I know for me, like I'm from California, and what I see is like I hear people like California is the best place on earth. Like it's the place to be, has everything you need, which is it is like it's great. It has beaches, it has nature, it has snow, like whatever you want to go to, it has. But there's just something different about leaving that comfortable hometown that you're living in, going out and seeing the world and like understanding the cultures of other places. Like you're never going to understand Colombia until you actually go out and see it for yourself and like live there for a good amount of time. You can watch Narcos, you could watch videos and like all this stuff, but it's not going to portray what Colombia is actually like. Just like with any other country, like I can like there's so many different stereotypes for other countries, and I want to be able to help people figure out how to do that. And I know when I was in college I thought you needed like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to travel, but the more I'm realizing, the more I finally just took that jump and experienced it myself. Like I was only getting paid like $400 a month at that school, but I was living off of it, and I was living great off of it. I was still traveling to other cities. I was partying on the weekends. I was like eating good food, going out to great restaurants, going on dates and everything with barely any money. And you really don't need all that money to be able to make that kind of lifestyle happen. And I try telling people, like, what makes you think that there's millions and billions of cities all around the world, that the one that you just happen to be born into is the one that you are going to be treated best in, that you're going to live your best life in? It's probably a pretty slim chance. And you're never going to realize that until you escape your hometown and go and make it happen somewhere else. And if you don't enjoy it and your life is truly better in your hometown, then boom, now you realize that and you could go back and live it. But you had those experiences and those different cultures to bring back that you can like be more open minded about.
Yep. And is that 400 bucks a month? I guess you were getting a free place to stay by teaching English?
No. So I was paying for a place too. So that the place we were staying in, I got lucky with my situation because the girl from Spain had a Colombian boyfriend. So he was able to help us like find local deals and go on like a local website and
Mhm.
find our apartment. So we were all paying like 700,000 each Colombian pesos. So around like $200 a month or something like that, which really wasn't that bad. Um, but it was still like half my paycheck. But paying half of that and still living on the other half, like I was living paycheck to paycheck, but I was still able to have a good time and have fun, like paying for things that I still wanted to do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like rent aside, you can live on 300 bucks a month and still have fun in Latin America for sure.
Seriously, like you really don't need a lot of money to travel, and what I realized.
Yeah. So telling us a little bit more about escaping the hometown, do you have any thoughts for people in terms of like a game plan and a way of advising people and yeah, like a little bit more tactical?
Yeah, for sure. So there's many websites and many organizations that can help you go abroad and like figure everything out for you. So ISIC is the one I went through. It's AIE SEC.org, and they have a bunch of different opportunities on there that you can go abroad to like there it's the biggest nonprofit in the world. So there's it's over 126 countries that you can go to on there. You just got to find the right opportunity. And like if money's the issue for you, they have like opportunities on there for you to make money while you're abroad too. Um, so I think the biggest game plan is literally going what I do when I don't know where I want to go, and let's say I just wanted to travel next year. I would go on skyscanner.com. I would literally put in where I'm flying out of, so San Francisco, and then it has an option that says cheapest destinations and then cheapest month to fly, and it'll come up with a list of all the countries, all the cities that you can fly to for cheap. And you could get literally one way tickets to maybe like to Colombia for like $150 if you're flying in the right time of year.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's my biggest thing is like I try to tell people like just buy the ticket, buy your plane ticket far out in advance so you have something to look forward to. Grind whatever you need to do, save up the money so you give yourself like I don't know 4 or 6 months, but have that ticket waiting for you and have it scare you like really like you have to have that feeling like I don't know how I'm going to make it happen, but you already did it, so you're going to figure it out. And once you like actually bought the ticket, your mind starts coming up with a bunch of ideas on how you can actually like either save up that money or how you're going to make that move abroad. And so that's why I think the biggest thing is just buying that ticket and getting that like thing that excuse of putting off actually going away by okay I have like a set date now. I'm going in May 30th of 2023, and this is the day I'm going to move to whatever country, but I'm doing it, and now it's time for me to just figure out how I'm going to make it happen. And I got really into manifesting and like journaling and just like scripting in journals like every morning. And so just writing down my goal, like I wrote down every single day since I think it was like November 2020 until my move to Colombia, which was June, no, July of 2021. Every single day that Sean Hall is paid to travel the world. Sean Hall is paid to travel the world. And just getting that goal in my head, like, okay, now I just need to figure out how I'm going to make it happen. And that was through content for me. That was through some brand deals, whatever it was. I made it happen. And like, or whether it's getting a job, you want to get like work a 9 to 5 job for a couple months, like what I'm doing right now, just to save up some money for my next trip.
Mhm.
You're like you just start figuring out ways that you're going to be able to make this trip happen, but just getting that planned trip out of the way is like the first step.
Yeah, I like that. I actually haven't heard that strategy in a while, and I really like the sound of that. I like the idea of putting the pressure on. If there's a will, there's a way.
Exactly.
And like, what's $150 plane ticket? You know, for most people, it's like one less pair of shoes or
Exactly.
one less night out. You know.
Like if you just really look at what you're actually paying for, like you can cut out a lot of expenses. And another thing is like I view money almost as like you have to see it as like an abundance mindset kind of thing. I was talking to my little brother about this actually because he just bought like $800 concert tickets for my little sister. Um, and he was kind of stressing. He was like, I'm kind of like broke right now. I don't know what's gonna happen. But I was telling him like just the fact that you did that like good karma act, it's gonna pay you forward again in the future at some point. You don't know how or you don't know when, but it will. And even if it doesn't, you have that good karma that it's gonna always come back to you. Um, and so in June of last year, like right before I moved out of Colombia, coming back, I was like, I need to plan my next trip. So I literally did that exact thing. I bought a one way ticket to Vietnam because I've always wanted to go to Asia, and I planned it out for January. So I was like, I'm going to work the next 6 months or whatever I'm in the U.S., save that money, and then go travel again.
Mhm.
And that was like a $350 ticket, which now like my plans have changed. I'm not going to do it after all, but it's $350 that I feel like it's already gone, but I like program my mind already that like I'm just gonna like work on impulse and do what I actually want to do. So I've changed. I'm gonna move back to Latin America instead in the new year. I'm thinking Colombia for a month and then Argentina after that, just to continue working on my Spanish and like living in that Latin American like vibe. So that Asian tickets is gone, but it's doesn't feel like a bad thing just because it's something of the past and it's something that like I feel happy that I even like made the decision like I'm just gonna do it and bought it on impulse kind of thing.
So even though you have a ticket to Asia, you're like, you know what? I'm a Latin America guy now.
Yeah, because I was like, dude, like I can go to Asia some other time. I really need to go back to Latin America because I miss it way too much. Like I could figure out a way in the future to go to Asia again, but I need to come back here. I feel like that's where I belong.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think it does make sense to do things in sort of like multi-year missions as well, because it might take a couple of years to get your Spanish to like a really strong conversational level.
Hmm.
And then you can take that forward in the future. Let's say even if you went to Asia, then it would make it easier for you to maybe connect with like the Latino community in Asia and like actually be able to talk to them and stuff. Um,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
yeah, I like the multi-year goal. Sweet. So you've been converted. You're a Latin America
Yep.
guy now.
You know, Twitter actually, your page helped me a lot with realizing that. Like, I started going on Twitter and like, I think when I first started interacting with your posts and other people in like that Latin American like community on Twitter, it was like around maybe September, October this year. I want to say maybe October, and
Hmm.
I was like, I'm not putting my story out enough on here. And I see you guys doing. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, you guys are a great community. Everyone's like commenting back on everything and has such like cool experiences living in Latin America. I was like, I need to go back, make more experiences, so I have more to bring to this community. So I was like, Asia is a different time. I need to work on Latin America right now.
Nice. So you've been enjoying the My Latin Life Twitter.
Loving it, and your podcast too. I've been listening to a lot of the episodes.
Awesome, man. I love to hear that. Yeah, man. I think you have a lot of potential, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, man.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, follow your story, plans for the future, anything that you would like to promote.
Yeah, definitely. So you guys can all follow me on TikTok and Instagram at by Sean Hall. So BYSEANHALL. I post pretty consistently on Instagram and TikTok, and we're working on Twitter to get more involved on that too. It's also the same username. Um, I'm gonna be making a lot more content about Latin America in the new year. Like when I'm there, commenting a lot more on comments on my TikTok videos. So if you guys have any questions for me on like Colombia, on teaching English, on ways that you can like go and just move abroad like I did. If your friends aren't ready to make the move with you, just how to do it solo, I got you. You could DM me on Instagram. You could follow me on TikTok and on Twitter as well. And yeah, I have plans in the new year to start some type of course around Escape My Hometown too. Maybe some type of like consultation calls, planning out your guys' trips, and just coming up with ways that we could get travel into your life as well. So a lot of big plans for 2023 for sure.
Awesome, man. Thank you for inspiring people to leave their suburban, car centric hellhole and live a life of adventure in Colombia or wherever you find a home in Latin America. I think we did a great job of breaking down some of the awesome things that await people.
Hell yeah. Thanks so much for having me on, man. It's an honor to just be a part of this community and be on this podcast. I really appreciate it and get to tell my story on here and everything. So keep doing what you're doing with this too. This podcast is popping off and I'm really excited for what you got going on too.
Thanks, Sean. This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.